Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it's time for the Q&A. So we had more than enough questions to easily get 3 parts today. We're still leaving tons of questions on the board. So let's go ahead and just get this started and knock as many of these out as we can. All right, first question. Jason, please do a video about supplement industry, snake oil salesman, shill, Jim, stoppani. I've already covered stoppani before, and I'll probably cover him again. You know what? I'll honor this request. I need to see what he's doing now. But what I will say is, yeah, it is pretty disappointing that a guy goes through all the trouble to get a PhD, and instead of helping the world, he uses it to shill worthless ass supplements. That's a really sad state of affairs, because actually a lot of work involved in getting a PhD, and he could have done so much good with it. Instead, what does he do? Sell supplements. Overpriced junk ass supplements. That's really sad. That's sad, man. What a waste. What a waste of so much potential. But I guess he's making money, so at the end of the day, I guess that's what matters to a lot of people. All right, next question. Romanian deadlifts versus good mornings. Oh man, that is so contextual dependent. The West Side guys are going to hate me when I say this, but I generally think the Romanian deadlift is probably a slightly more useful exercise. Why? Because it has the potential for some grip training also. But if your grip is already fatigued and you're doing these for volume, and you're probably not going to use a mixed grip, I think a lot of that goes away anyways. A lot of guys strap up for them. So I think if you're going to use straps for the RDL, I don't know. I think the Good Morning is just as good. I think it can easily substitute it. But I do think the Romanian deadlift is overall more useful. However, are there some variations of the Good Morning that may be slightly more useful? Yeah, I think things like doing them on a bench, like for people who really have weak thoracic erectors, for example, I think doing like seated Good Mornings have a very, very valid and valuable use as an assistance movement. Really, I guess it's an accessory movement, though, not an assistance movement. But, like with anything else, guys, this is what you have to look at with your assistance and accessory work. Trying to find the best one, it isn't. They're very context dependent. These are exercises that we do to bring up weak points or to train a similar movement pattern to a primary exercise. And if you're not training a specific weak point, then why in the hell are you wasting your time with assistance or accessory movement? I would say it's absolutely stupid to do any sort of assistance work that isn't for a weak point. It's a complete waste of time. You do your big exercises. And if we're coming over to addressing a weak point, I don't know which one of these addresses more of your weak points more effectively, right? That's what you have to look at with either one of these. So you can't really say one is better than the other, because I just said, hey, I think Romanian deadlifts are overall more useful, but then I immediately came up with a valid use for the Good Morning over the Romanian deadlift. So you see the problem with that line of thought? It's very context dependent. Assistance and accessory movements are very context dependent. There isn't always a, hey, this is better than this one. Depends on what you're using them for. And if you don't know what you're using them for, then you don't need them. Don't do them at all. Stick to your basic lifts. All right, next question. All right, I got to say this in the voice of John Coffey. Hey, boss. What's your thoughts on bone broth and collagen? Totally different thoughts on these two things. But collagen, I think, is completely useless. I think collagen, supplementing collagen or seeking it out, I think from a nutritional perspective is completely useless, where you're basically chasing pixie dust at this point. Because people say, well, what about helping with the collagen in your body? Collagen's an incomplete protein. There is literally, and I do mean literally, nothing that is in collagen that isn't already in a steak or chicken or whey protein, or probably even in beans. Hell, we don't even need to go to animal source proteins for that. You could get everything in beans that's in collagen. Your body doesn't care where the amino acids come from once it breaks them down. You don't get collagen into your bloodstream by eating it. You get the amino acids. So this is completely asinine. It's completely asinine. Bone broth, on the other hand, I'm going to have a totally different answer. Bone marrow is actually a really good source of essential fatty acids. And in fact, I mean, when you start looking at trends and as far as speciation and anthropology and things like that, there's some evidence that Bone broth was partially responsible for us getting enough essential amino acids to develop our larger brains. It seems to be one of the food sources we use for that. So if you're talking about, again, getting some quality nutrition in, bone broth, so go ahead and like cooking your stews and stuff and leaving the bone in and cooking with bones and things, that's some possible benefit. That actually does make sense, and it's not a bad idea. Again, stews and stuff that or in soups and everything to where you leave bone in there, yeah, you're getting a lot of the stuff out of that bone marrow, and that broth and everything that you're getting with all the bone marrow mixed in has some nutritional benefits. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I would recommend that. So two totally separate questions on opposite ends of the spectrum on the answer. All right, next question. What's a more effective hamstring builder, the Romanian deadlift, stiff leg deadlift, or leg curl? Now that's a tough one. My top answer is not even on this list, to be honest. I'm not going to go with leg curl. Again, unless you have an axial loading recovery issue and you do not have access to a glute ham raise. Okay, that's a tough question, because with that one, I'm not even saying leg curls don't have their place, do it? Yeah, so I'm going to say, honestly, the best hamstring builder outside of your normal deadlifting and squatting and all of that's going to be the glute ham raise. If you have access to a glute ham device, that is hands down the most effective hamstring builder out there. And it has to do with the fact that it works all functions of the hamstring, moves your body through space. I mean, it's an all-around fantastic exercise. You are not going to beat the GHR for hamstring development. You're not. Out of these, I see the stiff leg deadlift as an assistance movement for the deadlift. I don't think it is as good of a hamstring developer as the Romanian deadlift, because the Romanian deadlift is a better accessory movement for the hamstrings, for bringing up lagging hamstrings, because you're training them to get a stretch reflex. You're working the muscle a little differently than you're working it on your deadlift. You have the potential to do a lot of volume on it. So if you're doing volume work to bring up the lagging hamstrings, I think the Romanian deadlift is probably the better choice out of those two. So where does a leg curl fit in there? You have too much axial loading in your program. You're doing so much squatting, benching, pressing, push presses, cleans, whatever else you're doing, that you can no longer recover, and you still need more direct hamstring work. Well, that's where I would say, hey, you need to do a glute ham raise, right? Obviously, GHR, best hamstring builder. All right, you're in that situation and you do not have access to a GHR, but your gym has leg curls. The leg curl becomes the obvious choice. So again, these things are context dependent. It's not always a question of what's the best exercise for bringing a muscle up. It's going to be what's the best exercise for doing these things with the movement patterns you're working with in the context of your overall training program, your weaknesses and equipment available. All right. We need to stop looking for this best exercise, and it's all context dependent. And I just gave you the various contexts for that question. All right. Next question. Hi, Jason. In a recent video that you made, you listed the big five as squat, deadlift, weighted pull-up, deadlift, and press. But let's address the elephant in the room. Am I the only one out of the millions of your viewers that noticed you didn't list the pendlay / barbell row? And are you saying that the weighted pull-up is better than rows are? Oh, man. In the context of a general program, a general strength program, yeah, I would like to see pull-ups. I would like to see pull-ups. Is the pendlay row an awesome exercise that I have done thousands and thousands of reps of myself over the years? Yeah, absolutely. The pendlay row is a fantastic exercise. However, if you are already deadlifting, right? If you're already deadlifting at a pretty high frequency and volume, I'm going to go with the pull-up over the pendlay row. If you're in a phase of training where you need the extra pulling off the floor, because that will carry over to your deadlift better, and you're not doing a lot of deadlift volume because you're in a lower volume deadlift phase, I think that's where the pendlay row really shines. That's where it really shines. Like, for example, I've had periods of time where I only deadlifted one peak set every week, but I was doing up to 10 sets of pendlay rows in a workout, right? Or if you're only deadlifting once a week at all, I think that's where pendlay rows and stuff can really fit in to fill the gap, because they carry over really well to your deadlift. They give you that extra pull off the floor. I think the pendlay row is an amazing exercise, fantastic exercise. Hell, my novice program has 15 sets of pendlay rows every single week in it, but you're only deadlifting one peak set. So therein lies the difference. I think overall, I think the pull-up is a better exercise when paired with the deadlift. But again, it's all context dependent upon what's going on in your program and the various volumes and workloads you're doing on these lifts. But yeah, no, I love the pendlay row, and I've done lots of pendlay rowing, and I promote the pendlay row. But if I'm going to narrow it down to 5 exercises, and you're just going to get as brutally strong as possible on only 5 exercises, I'm going to go with the 5 that I gave for just overall size and strength. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.